from a rainy outside right now at a disc golf course, because today's a fun day before we get into our final chapter. Every day in physics is a fun day. That's the right response to that statement, but particularly fun today. So is it time to actually start? It is 9:01. All right, cool. One thing I forgot was my attendance sheet, but I did say hi to all of you people, and I'm trying to keep an eye on who's here. I guess I can go back and look at the video and make sure I see who's here. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the physics of disc golf today, because all of the stuff we've done so far plays into physics of disc golf. And some people have been asking me questions about the real world physics problem. And I thought maybe this would be a way to share with you my real world physics problem. One of the two that I would do if I had to pick one. And then it's just like a little break before we get into the final chapter. Has anybody out there ever played disc golf before? Alexis is saying yes. Addie's saying no. At least one or two people have played before. It works much like traditional golf, except instead of hitting a ball, you're throwing a disc. We've talked about why discs fly the way they do and why they're different than a ball flying through the air. So it gives you some unique differences. One, you can play through the woods. The course that I'm at actually plays through those woods over there. Unlike traditional ball golf, you can't really do that. You need kind of open fairways. Since this is flying, in different patterns through the air, you can shape different types of shots. And the reason you can do that, you guessed it, because of physics. Because physics of how the world works, how Bernoullis Principle works that we were just talking about. But we're going to go all the way back for the first part of my real world physics problem and talk about velocity, acceleration, and impulse. So let's see if I can wedge this in my bag so you can see me. Alarm turned off. If I wanted to leave my hand with the fastest possible velocity, that means I have to have it accelerate with the largest possible acceleration. If I want a big acceleration, that means they need a large force. Now, my upper body muscles are fairly strong, I guess, probably more than average because I'm a fairly big person. But my lower body muscles are bigger and stronger. You guys are the athletic training and sports medicine people, so you know that better than most. So instead of just using my arm to throw the disc, like I would for a Frisbee, I want to use my whole body, especially my legs. I want to engage my legs to get more force and therefore more acceleration. So I reach back and bend my knees and push with that back leg. Drive my back leg through, drive my hip through, and get a full power throw. It's much stronger than just having my arm throw. If I just throw with my arm, it's going to go probably 100 feet. If I throw with my whole body, I can triple that. Professional disc golfers can throw 600 feet, which is about twice as far as I can. It's about 2 football fields, which is crazy, but pretty cool too. All right, so that's thing number one. F equals ma, bigger force, bigger acceleration, faster disc speed when it leaves my hand. Thing number two, impulse. So we're going to talk about impulse at least twice today. The first one is, why do I do this reach back? Why do I reach so far back? Well, if I'm just coming to here and coming across, my force isn't in contact with the disc for as long. If I reach back here, I'm going to be holding the disc for a longer time. Same with my follow through as I come through. If I'm holding the disc in my hand longer, my force is applied for a longer time. Change in momentum equals force times time. The longer the time is, with the same amount of force, the bigger the change in momentum is going to be. If it's shorter, I get a smaller change in momentum. Impulse. Awesome. Real world physics number 3. Got to keep track of how many of these I'm throwing at you because I'm throwing a bunch at you. Bernoullis Principle. Notice the disc has a dome to it. It's shaped like an airplane wing. When I throw it through the air, it's moving and the air is going over the top of that dome and the air is going underneath the flat part. The part that's going underneath the flat part is laminar flow, smooth flow. The part that's going over the top is turbulent flow. That means that the air pressure on top of the disc is smaller than the air pressure in the bottom of the disc. If the air pressure in the bottom is bigger, it's going to make it go up. Now, this is really important if I'm throwing in a windy day. If it's windy and there's a headwind, so the disc is going this way and the wind is going that way, the relative speed of the disc is going to be higher. That means the disc feels like it's going through the air faster because the wind is moving and the disc is moving. Remember vectors, they add up. That means it's going to feel more lift. So if I throw into a headwind, it's going to get pushed up. If I'm throwing with the wind pushing behind me, a lot of people think that helps you throw farther, and sometimes it does if you throw it right. But if I throw it the same as I normally do, the wind pushing behind it is going to make the disc feel like it's going slower. The disc will act as if you threw it slowly, and it's going to fall. It's going to be pushed down. Additionally, Newton's third law, so we're covering like all of the bases here. If I throw the disc and it leaves my hand like this, with the nose edge of the disc up, it's going to be going through the air like this. The air is going to hit it and bounce off. Newton's third law says that's going to make the disc shoot up in the air. And if it shoots up in the air, it doesn't go very far because it just crashes down to the ground. Whoa, that's a lot of physics, isn't it? That's like everything we've talked about. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of the stuff we've talked about. You want to see a couple throws? There's 3 different types of discs. As I get them out of my bag, I'll show you what they look like. There are putters, which are very similar to a frisbee that you might throw on the beach. They're just, a frisbee is a bigger diameter and maybe a little lighter. These are a little heavier, a little denser, and a little smaller. But it's still got this relatively thin rim and relatively blunt profile. If you look at the side of it, you can see it. A mid-range disc is like that, but slightly sharper on the edge. Not quite as narrow and not quite as blunt on the edge. It's made to cut through the air a little bit more, but not as much as a driver, which we'll get to in a second. This is like your irons in golf, where you're chipping up to the green. This is like your putter in golf. Although unlike a putter in traditional golf, you can actually throw these putter discs pretty far, but they don't go as fast through the air because they're blunt on the edge. They have more air resistance, which we've talked about in our class. And also because of their profile, when they hit the grass, they tend to just stick. Whereas these ones, the drivers, which are much sharper on the edge, tend to hit and skip. And that's a little bit more complicated. It has to do with the way torque works, a little beyond what we've talked about in this class. So we won't really talk about the skipping of the discs, although it is kind of cool. You can actually skip them off of the water if you're really good at it. I don't do that because they're like 15 bucks a piece and I don't want to lose them. But mid-ranges, somewhere in between a driver and a putter. And then there's drivers. There's actually 2 types of drivers. There's fairway drivers, which are a little slower speed, but still sharp on the edge. And then there are distance drivers, which are really sharp edge. You don't want to get hit by one of these. I mean, they're solid and they come to a point. You can see the rim is really thick, gives you more mass on the outside, a bigger I value, a bigger moment of inertia. So you can really torque on them. Oh, torque. I didn't really talk about that. When I throw, I'm holding it like this on the edge of the disc. Can you see that? Yeah. So the disc would be flying this way and I'm holding it on the side. If I'm holding it on the front, it doesn't apply any torque because this is the center of mass where it's rotating. And if I'm pulling this way, there's no lever arm, so there's no torque. It doesn't spin. If it doesn't spin, it just flops and then falls on the ground. So I hold it on the side here. So there's a lever. That's a lever, and it causes rotation. When I release the disc, it makes it spin, which makes it fly the way it's supposed to. Different types of discs are designed. You can see this one has like a bigger bevel on the bottom. This one is, like I said, much sharper with a fairly flat top. They're designed different ways on purpose, so they fly differently. This one, if I throw it, it's going to go straight and then turn left at the end. This one is going to go straight a little bit, but then it's going to turn hard to the right. That has to do with Bernoullis Principle as well, because when this is complicated. So this is beyond what we were learning in the class, but it's kind of neat. Since the disc is spinning like this and moving through the air that way, the air on this side feels like it's moving faster than the air on this side. This side of the disc is moving away from the air. This side of the disc is moving towards the air. So it's complicated. It's more complicated than I just made it. That being said, how about if I just throw some discs? What do you say? I'm going to throw some of my slower discs first, just to get my arm warmed up because I'm not as young as you guys. Can you see me? Probably not. That's not a good angle. Yeah, you can? Oh, good. I'm aiming at that tree out there. I don't know if you can see that tree or not, but I'm going to throw the disc. and it goes pretty good. That's a putter. That went about 250 feet. Also, so that was a backhand throw, just like a backhand in tennis. It's coming across my body. Those are the powerful shots. I can also throw forehand, like a forehand in tennis as well, where I'm coming across my body like this, not across my body like this. They spin the opposite way, so the discs fly the opposite way. Remember I said some of them go right, some of them go left? If you throw forehand, they flip because the disc will be spinning the opposite way, which is kind of neat. So I'll throw this one forehand just to show you what it looks like. Now my forehand is not as good as my backhand. That one only went about 180 feet, so it's not very far out there, but it's also a putter. It's not supposed to go far. All right, one more mid-range, two more mid-ranges, and then I'll get into my drivers and see how far I can throw those for you. Can you see the disc flying? I don't know how good the camera is. Nice. Again, I'm trying to aim sort of at that tree out there. See it finishing left, and oh, I almost hit the tree. I don't know if you can see that, but it almost hit the tree. That was actually a really good shot. I threw it kind of wide, and I used that left turn that I told you about for that particular disc to try to hit that tree. This one's gonna fly kind of the same way. It's bright pink, so hopefully you see it a little better. Oh, no, that one slipped out of my hand. That happens a lot too. That one went way left because it slipped out of my fingers. All right. I'll throw one of the ones that is understable, which means it is going to turn really hard to the right. I'm going to throw it on an angle like this, and it's going to flip up and actually turn to the right. And there it goes, turning to the right. That one went about 300-ish feet, maybe a little bit more. Let's see, what's my farthest flying disc? This one, it's called a relativity, which I really like because it's physics. You can see it's got a big dome to it, which means it gets a lot of lift. So I can throw it low and hard, and it'll just keep going and won't fall because it's got that lift holding it up. So it goes about the farthest of any of my discs. I've thrown this one somewhere in the range of 400 feet. That's like my longest throw ever. Well, that one went a little too far left, but it did go about 330 feet. It's wet, so there's kind of slipping out of my fingers a little bit. I'll give a couple more throws, then we'll go over and talk about putting. Crap, that means I have to go get those putters I threw. So we'll have like a 5-minute intermission, then I'll talk about putting. So I'll throw two more. That's a better throw. That's gonna go right in the middle. So that one about 320, 330. There. One more. And that one's right by the tree. About 300 feet. So that's your basic disc golf throw. Any questions about that or the physics I've talked about so far? Putting. That is a disc golf basket. That is a target that we're aiming at. Ultimately, it's like the hole in golf. The hole isn't over unless you are in the basket like that. It has to be either resting in the basket itself or in the chains. If you land on top, it's not done. If you land on the bottom, you're not done. You got to finish. You got to put out. It's got to be in the basket. How it gets there? Well, you putt. Putting is anything within 30 feet of the basket, or 11. Let's see, is it 11 yards? So 33 feet? Yeah, 10 meters, 11 yards, 33 feet. Anything within that distance of the basket is a putt. And there's special rules for putts, but I'm not going to really get into that. I'll just show you the basics of how it works. There's essentially two techniques, and it has to do with vectors, which means it has to do with the direction that you're putting. One is called a spin putt, where you putt with a lot of spin and it goes directly towards the basket. No up and down motion, or minimal up and down motion. It's more of a straight vector, not a projectile. The second is a push putt, where it's spinning less, it's moving slower, and it's got more up and down. So those two have benefits and drawbacks. A spin putt is spinning more, so it's more stable. So it's much better in the wind. Plus it's more direct, so you're less likely to miss low than you would with a push putt. The drawback of a spin putt is that if you do miss, you're going way past the basket, because its vector is going straight, not down when it comes into the basket. And that means you're gonna have a longer putt if you miss. Whereas a push putt, if you miss, it's coming down because it's got that parabolic projectile motion. And since it's coming down, it's gonna land somewhere near the basket. You won't have as long of a putt if you miss. Now, we don't try to miss, but I mean, we do, because I mean, some of you are pretty close to perfect, but nobody's exactly perfect. So we always miss one or two. So the putting motion looks like this. It's gonna normally be farther back than this, but I can't get off of the screen. Everything is in a straight line towards the basket. We're not throwing like we did before, because that introduces a wide angle of possible misses. If I let go over here, it's gonna go that way. If I let go over here, it's gonna go that way. Whereas if I'm straight towards the basket, the only way I can miss is up and down, or very slight misses to the left and the right. Okay, so one of the key features of these baskets is these hanging chains. Why are there chains on these baskets? I've been doing all the talking, let you guys do a little bit. What's the purpose of having those chains there? What are those chains doing?
They stop the disc from just flying right through.
Okay, so they catch the disc, I agree. In terms of physics, why does that happen? Why not just have a pole there? Remember I told you we talk about impulse again? That's a little clue. So
the disc hitting the chain is like elastic, so it stays on.
there you go. Exactly. That's exactly it. So we're creating an elastic collision. If the disc hits the top, it just bounces right off. If it hits the pole, sometimes this happens. Sometimes the disc gets on edge, it hits the pole, it'll bounce straight out. It won't catch. But if it comes in and hits the chains, it's an inelastic collision. It catches them and just drops it straight down. It also increases the time that that collision is taking place, right? That's what inelastic collisions do. So the time of that collision is bigger, which means the force pushing it back is smaller, and it falls right into the basket. So push putt versus spin putt. It's hard to do a spin putt from like 10 feet away, but I'll give it a try. Spin putt comes straight into the basket. A push putt is going to come up and down. Can you see me? It's going to come from down to up, so that the vector is pointed in the upward direction and we get projectile motion. And you can't see it very dramatically when I'm only 8 feet away from the basket. I'll try to stand back a little bit more so you can actually see it. So we'll do a spin putt. Like I said, no one's exactly perfect. Spin putt. There we go. Straight into the basket. Push putt. That one went up and came down. Notice it was moving a lot slower than the first two. It has to do with the vector. So that's putting. Anybody have any questions about any of that stuff?
I know I threw a ton of stuff at you today, but today's like a kind of fun review day. I wanted to review a bunch of concepts. I wanted to go outside because yesterday was so nice. Today didn't turn out quite as nice, but still I'm outside, which is a win. Take advantage of the fact that we're remote, right? Like this is something we couldn't do if we weren't. So might as well do something we can't, something that benefits everybody, I think, especially me.